incorporation?
For my personal projects,
No, for like, what would you,
prefer as
what do you think, what are you hypothesizing?
I believe that incorporation of the teacher should be really standoff and only intervene when needed and only raise questions.
So that's going to be what you would hypothesize as this is going to be an effective teaching style, right?
Mhm.
So raise questions.
Only when necessary. Or, I mean, engage, not engage, lead conversation only when necessary, maybe.
Okay. Anything else that would be effective with that?
For incorporation separately.
Anything else down for that one?
I just have how much they allow students to be involved.
Okay. All right. So what was the next one?
Personal thought.
All right. So what would it, if it were effective to you?
They raise relevant questions that cause it was on the standard yesterday that you do complex. Oh, what was it called? Complex.
You're in the universal constructs, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Here. Oh, I was going to grab my phone and pull it up, but my phone is over there.
Complex communication. Is that what it is?
So,
Do we want to make our bullet points wrap around the universal constructs? Yeah. Let me pull it up. Oh my gosh. I feel like that would be most effective if we're trying to figure out when they're trying to get student standards.
the other thing I would also wonder is, do we want to take a look at the speaking and listening standards
Yes, I
in
think.
language arts? Because I think a lot of that language.
I feel like some of them aren't as necessary, but
Yeah.
with conduct an interview and stuff like that. But I know there's a bunch of them in there. So there's creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, complex communication, flexibility, adaptivity, productivity. Oh my gosh, and accountability. So do we want to? So our one, there's 6. Do you want to do 6 different? What if it's standards of our standards of our personal project, and it would be wrapped around how often the teacher allows for these different types of thinking.
All right, so what out of creativity do you think is most relevant? And I know there's a lot of ideas under there, so. And is there anything in the top paragraph that's kind of the essence of, that gives you the language to talk about this?
Student-focused learning.
Yeah, probably actually that whole sentence there. Caleb, creativity is a nurtured, advanced, and modeled through numerous approaches that include inquiry-based learning, abstract thinking, and student-focused learning. So
we could have 3.
yeah, because the inquiry-based learning would really be if the teacher were facilitating the conversations and, like you said, engaging when necessary to maybe probe deeper or to add a thought. So that's really them using some, what we would call a facilitative stance or some coaching language that supports inquiry-based thinking and abstract thinking. That's really what I think you're saying you want them to do. You want them to take a facilitator role, and it be a guide on the side, not the sage on the stage, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the whole entire creativity could just be from that they raise questions that allow for these inquiry-based learning, abstract thinking, and student-focused learning. Well, it would take away student-focused learning.
And is there any bullets or anything under that you feel like clarifies that better than what's written above?
A comfort level with open-ended challenges that reflect multiple approaches and results. So maybe it's the teachers allow students to find. Big has taught me, like, one thing I talked about in the reflection was that Big has taught me that there's more than one solution to a problem, and teachers and I also it asks how you approach a teacher, and it's pretty much you will never get a direct answer. They just give you questions, or the teaching styles that are probably the best. It just makes you lead questions. So collaboration. Non-hierarchical leadership based skills. How often they create a hostile environment, maybe.
Okay, so if we were,
I don't know how you measure that.
well, this is where some of that qualitative approach comes in. So remember how I talked about probably we might need to script some of these conversations to find, and we're going to code for certain things possibly to say where would be evidence of this, and
Of collab, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
yeah, so that's where that qualitative piece comes in. That respectful disagreement. Okay.
So we could measure it by the non-hierarchical leadership. It's if the teacher's leading too much.
Yep.
Okay. Just trying to think of ways we're actually going to be able to.
Yep.
Address
It's
it.
important just to think about what would that actually look like or sound like in practice. You bet.
Critical thinking. I don't know how this is almost the same with creativity, because it's pretty much raising new ideas for multiple pathways.
Right. So I think the thoughtful questions that challenge assumptions, promote higher order thinking. There are actually have you seen Bloom's taxonomy or the depth of knowledge scale? Okay. So there's actually levels of questions. So we actually will be able to we can categorize.
Oh, really? Wait, what's it called? Would I be able to find
Go
it?
to Bloom's taxonomy.
That was completely spelled on.
So if you just click on one of those images there.
Oh, okay. That's nice. So we could evaluate how often they raise these certain type of questions. And we wouldn't have to, we would just script this and we can decipher.
We can go back and,
Okay.
code for things that we're looking for.
I like that.
Would you?
Are you doing the show? What show are you doing?
Would you be looking for them to use ways, like various approaches to develop solutions? Is that a teacher behavior, or is that going to be they
Student.
more?
I think
Yeah.
it's student.
I do too. Yeah. Okay.
Complex communication. Ooh, we can. Okay, so it's include visual, digital, verbal, and nonverbal interactions. So we could track how often they use the GroupMe, the Project Barbecue, like weight rooms, how much they like give out information during the meetings. Think of how they maybe just within the meetings. We can just like how often they did visual, digital, verbal or nonverbal interactions. So like that would just be within the meetings. I don't think this is student. I don't think any teacher has problems with that.
I would wonder from this one if the way they might. So back to your idea that they would jump into the conversation for a purpose. What if it were to help focus, energize, and passion around the key message? So like, or the key result. You know?
So how often they like bring the team back together? To the main goal. How would we measure that though?
I think we'll be able to track it in the scripting data. We'll be able to code for it.
Is it pretty much like every single time they come back and say, hey,
Yeah,
did
it'd
you
be
think
a
about
count of it, and probably it'll overlap into how they do it.
Okay.
Like, is it a respectful way, or is it saying to somebody, "Oh my gosh, you're totally off track here. We got to shut this conversation down." Might not be the way that's going to make people feel like they want to put their voice into a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Flexibility and ability. I don't know really how they fit. Because this is kind of students. We could maybe track it how often they allow changes of projects. Like if they allow the students to change, or if they maybe keep it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's almost like a question of whose agenda.
What do you mean by that?
So, am I the teacher trying to push something forward? Or am I supporting the students and where they're trying to go with their passion and interest, adapting to that?
This is a side note, but our project's pretty much overall goal would to be to develop standards for the teachers. Do they already have standards for teachers? Is it like something like this, or is it just like you need to?
So there are, and that's actually what Trace will be evaluating me on today, is the Iowa Teaching Standards. They're not the most